Hello, Assalamu alaikum, dear learners of English literature. Once again, I am Harun Rashid, lecturer on English from Uttar Bangla College. So today I am going to cover another lesson from the paper titled History of English Literature, and the topic name is Elizabethan period. And you know that I am presenting the topics alphabetically, and it's one of the orders of my design of the presentation. And we know that Elizabethan period basically in England started from 1550 and it continued up to 1660. So now we would know the historical background of Elizabethan period. So Elizabethan period is named after the Queen Elizabeth I, daughter of King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. After the death of Henry VIII in 1547, Edward VI, the oldest son of Henry VIII and Jane Seymour, became the Protestant king of England. At the age of 9, he ruled England from 1547 to 1553. As he died at the age of 15, before the death, Edward VI made Lady Jane Grey as the successor of England throne, a cousin of the king, and a Protestant, but Mary, the daughter of Henry VIII. We know that Henry VIII had 3 children, Queen Mary, Elizabeth and Edward VI. So the daughter of Henry VIII and Queen of Aragon, Queen Mary, and as he was the follower of Catholic Church, and these Bloody Mary, and Queen Mary is also called Bloody Mary, beheaded the Queen Lady Jane Grey, and Mary's rule was started from then. And we know that Mary's rule was full of persecutions and executions because he executed or beheaded many Protestants actually who went against Queen Mary, and she imprisoned also her half sister Elizabeth out of jealousy because she thought that Queen Elizabeth is making plot to hold the power of England. So however, Mary died at her childbirth, and as he married Spanish Prince Philip, so during his childbirth Mary died, but it was a fake childbirth. In fact, Mary was died of stomach disease, and Elizabeth became the Queen of England after the death of Queen Mary. And Queen Elizabeth was a Protestant, and she ruled England brilliantly till 1603. So this was the historical background of Elizabethan period. Now we would know the key characteristics or features of Elizabethan period. So first, interest of Greek and Italian literature. We know that before the preceding age was the Renaissance, and the influence of Renaissance is still tremendous in England. The English writers started to follow the Greek and Italian authors. It brought a dazzling light into many dark places of interest. The new classical influences were a great benefit, and we know that Renaissance means the revival of Greek and classical or Italian art and culture, and they tempered and polished the earlier rudeness of English literature and imported different genres of writing in England from Greek, Italy and classical authors. These imports later dominated the literary world of England. So the first feature of the Elizabethan is interest in Greek and classical literature. Then we would see the religious toleration, actually religious tolerance. When Queen Elizabeth ascended the throne, the kingdom was divided against itself. The north was Catholic, the south was Protestant, and Scotland followed the Reformation, and Ireland was true to its old religious tradition. And there were also different opposing religious parties, but Queen Elizabeth had been successful to bring conciliation among the religious sects and political parties, and this atmosphere gave stimulus for the great literary production of the Elizabethan period. And we know that the great, in fact, some great literary figures came out from Elizabethan period. as she was the patron, one of the patron of English literature during this age. Then we would see social contentment. The rapid expansion of manufacturing towns gave employment to thousands who had before been idle and discontented. Increasing trade brought enormous wealth to England, and this wealth was shared systematically with the poor people. So, the increase of wealth, improvement in living, the opportunities for labor, the new social content, these are the factors which help to account for the new literary activity or production in Elizabethan period. Then we see enthusiasm. So, Elizabethan period, because of Renaissance, a new enthusiasm was created. Elizabethan age was an age of dreams, of adventure, and of unbounded enthusiasm. And these were actually this happened because of the influence of Renaissance, and it was created by the explorers finding of new lands of riches and wealth. Explorers as Drake, Cabot, Frobisher, Gilbert, Raleigh, William Hawkins, a score of explorers reveal a new earth to man's eyes, and instantly literature creates a new heaven to match it. So, dreams and deeds increase side by side, and the dream is ever greater than the deed. That is the meaning of literature. In fact, Romanticism started from this very period. So, abundance of output, and during this period, English literature was enriched by different genres and many literary output or productions. Elizabethan age was rich in literary productions of all kinds during the Elizabethan period: poetry, drama, prose, treatises, pamphlets, various forms of writing were being composed freely. Sometimes the Queen directly patronized the authors, and there was stability in all sectors, and all this happened of the Queen's wisdom, because of the Queen's wisdom and capability. For all these, many great things were done during this period. Actually, many great things were done during the Elizabethan period, as well as in regard of literary world. We see many great authors with their valuables or masterpiece. So, now the new Romanticism. Actually, the romantic quest is for the remote, the wonderful, and for the beautiful. All these desires were abundantly fed during the Elizabethan age, which is the first and the greatest romantic period in English literature. Then we would see the translations in Elizabethan age. We know beside new creation, there are some import as well as some translation from different or foreign languages. The Elizabethan age witnessed translation into English of several important foreign books. Many translations were as popular as the original books. Sir Thomas Nord translated Plutarch's Lives, and John Flario translated Montaigne's Essays. Metamorphoses was translated by Arthur Golding. Aristotle's Orlando Furioso was translated by Sir Harrington. So, these are the translations, some of the notable translations during this period. Then we will see the spirit of independence. So, in spite of borrowing from abroad, we know because of the influence of Renaissance, English authors imported many classical or Italian writings or Greek writings in England, but they had their own creation as well. So, in spite of borrowing from the abroad, the authors of that period showed a spirit of independence and creativeness. Shakespeare wrote freely, but by his creative imagination, he transformed the dross into gold. Spenser introduced Spenserian stanza, and from his works, we got the impression of inventiveness and intrepidity. On the whole, the outlook of the writers during the age was broad and independent. Then we see the development of drama, and we know that in Elizabethan period, basically English drama developed completely, and during Elizabethan age, drama made a swift and wonderful leap into maturity. Drama reached the splendid perfection in the hands of university wits Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. Then we would see the popularity of poetry during this period, and poetry enjoyed its heyday during the Elizabethan period. The whole of the age lived in a state of poetic fervor. Song, lyrics, sonnets were produced, even the narrative poetry were produced in plenty, and England became the nest of singing birds. In versification, there was a marked improvement. Melody and pictorialism were introduced by Spenser. Then prose and novel. So during this period, prose and novel also developed hugely. So for the first time, prose rose to the position of first-rate importance. Even the development of poetical drama between 1579 to 1629 is hardly more extraordinary than the sudden expansion of English prose, and its adaptation to every kind of literary requirement. The dead weight of the Latin and English acquired a tradition and universal application. English novel made its first proper appearance during this age, and prose got its perfection at the hand of Francis Bacon, and we know Francis Bacon basically is famous for his epigrammatic or pragmatic prose style. So then the Elizabethan writers. So there are many Elizabethan writers. I have taken some major writers in my slides, notable writers. First, William Shakespeare from 1564 to 1660, and he wrote about 36 plays and 154 sonnets, and as well as 2 long narrative poems or epic. And then Christopher Marlowe from 1564 to 1593, he wrote poems. Actually, he wrote 6 plays and several other plays. He also wrote an unfinished epic or narrative poem, and as well as a book of lyrics. Then Edmund Spenser from 1552 to 1599, he wrote poems like The Fairy Queen, the masterpiece is an epic poem, then Shepherd's Calendar and other poems. Then Sir Philip Sidney from 1584 to 1586 wrote the Arcadia, Defense of Poetry, Arcadical Essay, and several other poems. Then Charles Thomas Sackville from 1536 to 1608, and he wrote Garbodak, the first tragedy in English, and it was written in 1561 with Thomas Norton and other works. Then Elizabethan other writers, John Lilly, author and a poet. He was one of the university wits, and he wrote career lasted from 1556 to 1606. He wrote The Anatomy of Wit, Endymion, The Man in the Moon, and other works. Then Sir Thomas Kyd, playwright, and as well as another university wits. His career lasted from 1558 to 1594, and he wrote The Spanish Tragedy and other works. Then Ben Jonson, he was a playwright and a poet, and he was from 1572 to 1637, who wrote Every Man in His Humor and other works. And then Robert Greene, author and playwright and a poet, from 1558 to 1592, and he wrote Green's Groats, Oath of Wheat and other works. And then Michael Drayton, a poet and author, and wrote historical poems, The Shepherd Garland and other works. So thus my today's presentation is. So thank you for being with me.